later. So we'll send a recording after this so you guys can rewatch at your leisure. So should we introduce group one and then ask some questions?
Yes,
Okay, that's a great plan. I'll start from the side, just my left-hand side. So Ashton Tuckman is a CMO at Gap. I'm going to do, actually, you know what? You guys can introduce yourselves. You don't know what that is.
Actually, sorry. So before we do that, because our first question was going to be, give us 3 words to describe yourself. Why don't we combine the two? And can you just give us a little intro and your 3 words to describe yourself?
I like the power efficient. Hi, I'm
manager.
Yeah, 2 words.
CMO at Gather. It's an online booking platform startup, Queensland female business, which is awesome. Booking private chefs and catering and greasing stylists. So my 3 words to describe myself are calm, creative, and
I would so love to have the word calm as one. I was just thank you very much for sharing
I'm Kelly Brown. I am the head of marketing at Cubic. The 3 words to describe myself would be curious, creative, and empathetic.
Lovely. Vicky Lee.
Well, I'm Vicky Lee, and I run TV with us in content through powerhouses. My people describe me as strong, passionate, and I'd say experienced.
She's all that.
Hi everyone, I'm Nicole Hartley. I'm the academic in the room, sorry. I'm also fun, that's my one of my left. I am an academic with UQ and in UQ Business School. I am now the director of the MBA program, but before that academic life, I had many roles in marketing and advertising prior to that, and I've taught advertising for me pretty my description is, I'll say fun, I will say fun. Fun, thoughtful, and passionate.
Amazing.
Oh, sure. Hi everyone, I'm Priscilla Jahan. Everybody calls me Sil. I am founder of my own creative and digital agency called the Together Society. And it's really hard actually to think of 3 words to describe yourself. So I threw it to my 5-year-old twins just before I left that night. And they said, Mummy, fun, and then farts, and we ran away. So hopefully that doesn't describe you to mine. I apologize, Jess.
So I'm Jesse Ross. I'm senior creative copywriter at Chemistry. I forget if we call growth. When on parental leave, we were called growth. When I come back, we call Chemistry. When I first worked there 10 years ago, it was also called Chemistry. So it's been a journey. And 3 words to describe me. Creative, like that's what I'm so energetic. And then also tired. And a foreigner, so it's been time.
Thank you, Jessica. Well, going to the front row, starting with Keisha.
So I'm Monia Calvary woman, and I work as a sole trader as a graphic artist and designer, and doing a lot of essentially combining my cultural knowledge with creative industries. And my 3 words to describe myself would be empath, passionate, and I'm just going for a high here, which is strong-willed.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm now an independent insights and strategy director. Until recently, I was head of marketing at Queensland Ballet and formerly creative agencies Times and whatnot. Strategy partners. And I think my 3 words, this was a real trick actually, this took me longer than any other question you said, but I'm going to go with strong, confident, and energetic.
You've been so strategic.
So we
Yeah, so I'm Carolyn Strecky. I'm Canadian. I'm from obviously Montreal in Canada. So I'm head of strategy at the moment at chemistry. Been there for almost 4 years. And a lot of these words are very similar to the words that did pop up in my mind. So I'll use a new word. I'm different. Celebrate that difference. I am driven and I'm challenging, but always coming from a good place.
You can describe yourself in 3 minutes.
I didn't even prepare my words.
Describe me.
Ooh, Lynn, that is a good one. Lynn is energetic, Lynn is engaging, and Lynn is vulnerable in the best possible sense of the word.
So, challenger. I was a challenging task for that's too many words. The challenger, strong-willed, and courageous. So,
Think about better words than
yeah.
Well, this is your homework, dear mentors. Towards the end of the program, we'll do the reverse. We'll get one of you to do each other. So you'll get your easy words.
Amazing. I mean, the reason why we do that exercise is you realize that you use adjectives to describe yourself and you don't identify with like visual words. So like, you know, you don't describe yourself as female or like Australian or Western, whatever. So we're trying to break the mold around females for females with this program. And you start to realize with this exercise, you don't identify yourself as female first. You describe yourself with the adjectives or values that you try to embody. So that's what we're trying to do. So, should we go to the second question?
Let's get into the second question. Thank you. So we're starting out with a couple of let's get to know you questions. I'm going to throw this one first to Kelly. So the first one I'd like to get into is, what is your current challenge that you're working?
I have recently changed jobs and it was not my finest decision. So I am moving into consulting, which is a really big shift for myself because I've always worked for really stable companies where I've got a lot of maternity leave. It is absolutely thing. So for me, it's about a little bit of resilience and just going with the flow and being like moving past the imposter syndrome. Like I know I'm good at what I do, but some days I'm just like, shit, that's a big load on your shoulders to be self-employed. But yeah, that's what I'm doing now. And so I think I'm really trying to kind of self-faith and a bit of resilience and a bit of like confidence. Thank you. Yeah, so look, I'm going to be fine. I'm actually really excited about the opportunities that are coming from it, which is really cool. It's just like, whoa. So that's what I'm working on.
That's a good one. Thank you, Kelly. Let's throw that to Jessamine.
self-improvement.
Self-improvement goals.
Self-improvement goals. At the moment, so I've just been through a period where I've had all the children all the time. Yeah. I'm just gonna keep bragging about it, guys.
You know the story that was well in that dinner show.
Also, my house was on fire and a whole range of things. So I fell over and broke my ribs, and a whole range of things that happened to me in the past time. But now, self-improvement at bedtime. No, but now I feel like I've been through a phase of sort of getting through and surviving, which I'm sure some of you might be feeling, especially if you're at uni right now and you're really concerned about the job market and all sorts of things. It's about self-acceptance and getting through and finding something, you know, that you can just cling on to. But now I'm really ready to sort of hook in and find the next chapter. And so I'm really excited. I came back off parental leave on Tuesday and I walked into the office and I was super excited. And I went a desk in the corner and I had to write with the community company.
But I'm still super excited. Face it's gonna be a good year.
That's the spirit.
Should we get to the next question? Let's do it. Right. So the question is, before I start to throw it to you, I'll just throw it to you. If you could talk to yourself, starting your professional journey, what would be the one skill you'd advise yourself to learn?
It's a soft skill, but I always say to, especially the younger members in my team, sometimes I also push my team as well, don't be afraid to ask questions. And that's really basic. It sounds super simple. It's really hard, especially when you, especially, you know, like you mentioned, you have that imposter syndrome with privilege. It's really hard to sort of build up that strength to ask questions because we don't want to seem silly or we don't want to be so obvious. But being proactive and actually asking the question, that's how you learn. It actually makes you look really curious in the eyes of the person who you're asking. People generally love helping people. If they don't, they're bad people. So you don't worry about it. But being proactive and asking questions, look, especially in the early stages of your career, nobody actually expects you to have answers. So that's ridiculous. Again, that's the bad thing. Don't worry about that. Be proactive and ask questions because the only way you'll find the answers and get to that state and go, oh wow, I have the answers is by asking them.
I like that. I think you realize that none of us have the answers. We're always asking questions. How do you describe ourselves? Exactly. So I'm going to throw this question to Erin. Do you remember?
What skill should I have had at the start of my career? I actually, it's very practical, but I would go back and do a lot more. I spend a lot more time in data analysis. Reading it and learning a lot and still studying as I go, no problems. But I spend a lot of time in kind of the more arts and English side with a journalism degree and probably should have been a bit heavier on the numbers, which I'm okay with, but it'd be more handy now if I should really good ground.
That's interesting, two very different pieces of advice. Actually, before we move on, can I just really quickly throw that to you? I feel like she's got a good insight, being, the head of MBA program and everything.
Well, still my answer, but also being curious is the other thing around that. But the other thing I think is being able to pitch, and by pitching, I mean, be able to convincingly tell what it is that you say, what it is you want to say in a very short amount of time. A lot of women, we tend to waffle around it, and we soft-code things, and we kind of say, sugarcoat this, and I'm going to go down this pathway. By the time you finish talking, you're saying, what did we talk about? And even in your head, you're going, what are you saying? What are you trying to say? And you watch men, and they kind of get to the point very quickly, and we do the sugarcoating thing. It's nice to do the sugarcoating thing, but it's also nice to be very astute in kind of getting your point across. So asking the right questions in the right way is a really fine art, and there's a difference between being pushy and going a bit aggressive and doing it in a nice way that shows that you're really inquisitive and you're really wanting to understand and know. So these are things in how you pitch an idea or your question. I think that's a really good skill.
Amazing. Yeah, I know you love talking about it, so.
Yeah, okay. So, all of you guys, write this down. I'm going to write notes for you.
Homework. Homework time. Oh my gosh, people are actually trying to write this down.
Women in a meeting language. I'm sure I down as an email language as well. Jamila is basically a journalist, publisher,
And all around stuff.
and you should read a book.
It's a lot of homework.
But her video on YouTube was talked about women in a meeting language, which is essentially the way that poems were practiced before, where people tend to waffle on and explain the reasons why you're in the room.
And go to apologize over and over again.
So I would encourage you to watch that and start thinking about yourself that you can to, and then start not only identifying with yourself, but thinking about
We started, so once you watch it, it's sort of this moment of realization because it's equal parts terrifying and hilarious. Because you watch it and you laugh and then it's kind of like, do that. That's totally me. So yeah, kindly do that to yourself, kindly do that to your friends at work, because you will start noticing how often we do it and how entirely unnecessary.
Yeah, probably just about this.
Absolutely. Next question. So this is a good one. What is the secret sauce of being a good leader? Oh, you. How about you?
Sure. Well, in my business, I lead a far smaller team than I have in the past. But when I reflected on this question, I really looked at it and looked at my sort of previous leadership experience. And what I feel I possibly didn't do enough, but what I feel is the secret sauce that I should have done, and that I think great leaders do, is carve out the time to get to know everyone on your team and what makes them tick, and get to what drives them. And, I don't feel that I have the time to do that, and that's, to my own leadership detriment, if you like, when I look back and reflect on that. But I think that's the secret sauce. Everything that I read, everything that I consume, the really, really great leaders take their team personally and what makes them tick. They take that personally, and they make sure that whether it's the values that, the company embodies, whether it's, the benefits that they put in place, or whether it's about, whatever specific reward they give to, their team, it's a personal thing. We're all about personalization. Brands are all about personalization now. I feel like leadership should be no different. It should be very personal.
I want to throw this over to Carolyn now.
I think the secret sauce of being a great leader, one is empathy. So I think when you're leading a team, even if it's not a direct report, you're in charge of a cross-functional team. It's just understanding where people are coming from. So most of us tend to arrive and start our day from our point of view. Great leaders, they see situations, scenarios, conflict even from the other person's point of view. And I think that allows you to address any communication challenges that you have, and just address conflicts before they become conflicts. So empathy is definitely, I think, a great trait for a leader. And the second one is, call it active listening. So it's listening for what's not being said. And I think that's a really great skill. So listening to the words, people, but listening to what's also missing, and being able to read into body language and how are people showing up in meetings, and what are they not saying, but they're demonstrating and showcasing. And then you're able to really make really great decisions based on, diving into empathy and reading a room and actively listening.
I can definitely say you do both of those things, because every single day you write to me and say, Leanne, have you done this thing? Leanne, have you thought about this thing? And I always know that to do that out of love and out of care, because you're making sure that I've done my job. And not 9 times out of 10 I say yes, but it's just really nice that you do that and you're looking out for me as well. So I appreciate that.
Leading with the heart.
Okay, so the next question, this is all obviously all about mentoring and impact of mentoring in one-to-one situations, also bigger sort of groups as well. That's what we're trying to do with this, where it's not just about introducing all these mentors, but it's actually sharing all the learnings with you guys, the next generation coming through as well. So this question is all about mentoring itself. So what impact has mentoring had on your life and career? Now I'm going to throw that to Vicky first.
Well, Vicky always has a story. I actually struggle with this because, I started in industry very young. I was 16 when I started in this industry, so I didn't finish my school. I didn't go to university, and I found my way through this nightmare of advertising in the 80s, which was quite fun, but it was very, very draining on that. So, there was a lot of challenges there for me by being a female. But I think I just absorbed from people around me the good and the bad and the ugly that all comes from that, and took the best parts of those people
as I got more confident and grew, I did find some great mentors, but they were always the people that I worked with, beyond my obviously family and parents, but they don't know what my work life like, and you actually do have your work family. And as part of your work family, you'll always find somebody that you can that you can be open, honest, and vulnerable with, and ask the hard questions and get the hard answers from them, so that you can self-improve as you go through. So there's been a number of those in my work career. Lots of them, to be honest with you. And it's not just people I work with, it's also the suppliers that I've grown and have had in my life for years and years as well. So it's not just that work family, it's the extended work family, because they're all part of me, all those people that I work for and with. And so I've absorbed all those things and tried myself as a mentor then to give that back to the people that I mentor.
I think it definitely does.
I always do.
And I would say, sorry, before we move on, I think that we would love to see Assisterhood grow into something that you guys can use, not only obviously mostly taking the value of your one-on-ones, but at the same time growing your own squad as we have out of this program and creating those trusted circles or peers or people just in front of you that you can be open with. It can be hard finding that person in your place of work. There are all sorts of dynamics and politics and all sorts of things why you may choose to not open up at your work. So really take the best out of it, and we'll try to assist you as much as we can by connecting you up to your peers and people maybe just a couple of steps ahead as well. So you can start building out that work for yourself.
Build. I'm going to throw a question to Keisha though. So, unpack a little bit more about
Yeah, I've had a really weird journey to where I am, but I think like especially coming out and working for myself, and that the fact that my cultural identity is so intrinsically linked to what I do, I think it's been quite difficult in the sense of finding a mentor for me particularly, or mentoring in a sense that is kind of has that element to it. So I found that actually quite difficult at the start, but I think it's again surrounding yourself with and seeking them out in the end, like seeking other creatives out, or even just people in business that kind of align. And so for me, it was very much like about the why I'm doing something, as opposed to kind of I think technical skills. So I found that difficult in itself, and it's just kind of for me, it's been about finding people in a more serendipitous way along the way that kind of reflect where I am in my journey as an artist and as a designer. And and just as I said at the very start, it's very like just saying I need the assistance, or I don't know what I'm doing, and it's not. It's everyone's like willing to help, and so connecting with those people, they just really at the time I think really boost what you're doing, and you can really learn. So I think that's my mentorship. I'm currently in the process of like getting together with a mentor, particularly around like the cultural identity of what I'm doing. And so that for me is really important for my growth. And then as well, like mentoring the very few people I have is, I think it's really imparting the value system that I have. And that they're seeking as well as with that very kind of narrative, purpose-driven work. Yeah.
So we asked one more question,
Yeah.
What are the key ingredients to being a good mentor? Like throw that to Nicole. Back to you.
This is really timely actually, because I was on a panel last night for business chicks. I'm not sure if you've heard of that organization, fantastic organization, love them. And as a business school, we got a partnership with them, and we were talking about mentorship. And I was like, this is the whole week, but there's a really lovely lady that was on the panel with me, and she was a coach, and so she someone said, what's the difference between a coach and a mentor? And they were talking about sponsors as well, and some confusing language, and I guess, what is the difference? And her terminology for it was that, so a coach assumes that you know what you're doing, and they're there just to guide you. You're the expert in the field, and that person is just to kind of keep you on track, right? So that's a little bit later when you're kind of more established. I don't know whether any of us feel weird or established, but anyway, a sponsor, when they talk about sponsor, is someone who opens doors for you. So it's someone who's got your back, and it's predominantly someone in your work environment who kind of goes, I can see potential in you, and you made your abilities and capabilities known to me, or your intentions known to me, and I'm happy to back you, and I'm happy to introduce you to such and such, and guide you on that. And then a mentor is someone who asks really good questions, and who walks beside you to kind of just help you feel that it's okay. And I think that's kind of what mentoring to me is. It's about someone who walks beside you, trying to help you instill confidence in what you're doing, ask the right questions, shares their experience. We're not here to kind of go, you should do this, or yeah, you should meet this person. Yes, we might have contacts that are great for you to know, and that's fabulous. But it's really about giving you the confidence and walking the path with you and asking you the right questions so that you end up going in the direction that you need to go in. Because we're not supposed to tell you which direction that is. We're helping you in the direction that's your direction to take.
I knew I could throw it.
I was going to say, I've been doing this for this 3 years, and each one has been different of where those mentees have been in their lives. But I'd say without a doubt, one of the best things that you can give them is confidence. Confidence to make the decisions about what you're doing, or how to approach a situation, or the confidence to ask the questions that they need to be asking. So I think confidence is really big in that.
Love it.
Should we open that door? Yes. It's your turn. Yes, we've asked a lot of the questions here. Does anyone have a question for our mentors? Right now? Stage right.
Yeah, okay. So I guess what I'm wanting to ask is, what's the biggest hurdle you had to face within your career, and how did you face that hurdle?
Do you want to ask anyone specifically, or
Anyone that would like to answer? Yeah.
I'd like to jump in.
Hello. Semi-recently, actually not too recently, what was 2020? I took a new job, and it was on paper amazing. People were actually amazing, in theory, amazing. It was not the right fit. It took so many boxes, like I said, lovely culture, the actual work that I was supposed to be doing, even salary, it was all sort of great. I just knew in my gut, it just didn't feel right. And I had never felt that before. I had always, even if the job was challenging, I didn't have this feeling of waking up being like, I don't want to be there. I just don't want to be doing this. And it was a really hard decision to pull the plug on that. I ended in my probation time to do myself and the business a favour as well. And it was hard because it was a breakup as well. And like I said, the people were lovely, and that was the hardest part. I don't want to let these guys down. So that was a really big hurdle. And the biggest part of it was probably having to break it off and knowing that I had to then take another new job and wondering if the same thing was going to happen again. So that really shook my confidence, and I thought, oh God, is it going to happen again? Is it going to keep happening? You know what, it does, and that's okay. I think it's just trusting your gut, giving things a run, and sort of feeling like you've given it enough time, but then really knowing, you will know, you'll really know it's like, this is not the right fit for me, even though on paper, in theory, whatever anyone else is saying, it should be working. If it's not working, that's okay, and know that you can start again as many times as you want. There's no limit on how many times you can start.
The story of CJ. Yeah, it's classic for that. Very inspiring.
I can jump in on another hurdle. So I've worked in advertising for quite a while, and Lynn talked about I don't define myself as a female. I define myself as a strategist or a strong person. But I found often I am, the only strong female in a room, and hearing comments like, "Oh, you're just being emotional, or you're being challenging," and that would never be said to my counterpart male. And I think for me, it's just assuming who I am, and that's how it is. And in the sense that, yeah, I am who I am, and not listening to what people say about you is really important. And just being true to yourself in your competency and your expertise. And you talked about knowing in your gut what's right, and just staying on your path. And it doesn't matter what people say around you, because you are who you are. That hurdle is, yeah, I have a dream that we won't talk about female leaders versus male leaders.
Incredible. Well, yeah.
I feel like as well, oh my God, I'm actually very forgetful of me. But I think when very much taking on your answer as well, particularly like the biggest hurdle I've found is I guess, when the social political environment changes as well, and there's I guess, a need for your kind of input, or particularly coming after Black Lives Matter, and kind of really preserving your self-preservation as well, I think is really important. It's something that I've had to learn, and not giving yourself to everything. And at the same time, which is a bit contradictory, is that when you are the kind of only minority in a very big industry, that you're still kind of like struggling you're stuck, like, a lot of the education is very at the ground level for what I do. So every client I have needs a level of like consultancy or basic knowledge, and it's just part of the self-preservation is, I think, I got told by my cousin who's a barrister in Indigenous as well, and he gave me really good advice saying that, I don't think anything changes unless you're there. So as much as it's crappy to kind of go through the process of, educating everyone constantly, I think there's a real need for you to be there, and that you need to go through that so the next person coming through is able to like have an easier road, and the path is set for them. So I think that's really important, but at the same time, like, don't let the outside world and whatever's happening in the world drag what you're doing down. And I think you really have to focus on, like, for me, I really want to focus on the design industry. I don't want to get caught up in every other thing that requires my energy, unless just because I'm like on a minority group. So I think that's really important.
This really resonates with me because I feel like this industry always has me, right? So you realize you get to a point where the female leaders that you transition, they're all in command, they're all doing 3 different jobs, and you realize there's only so many of them at the top. So we need to start thinking about how else you can start bringing up. You realize there's another part of the equation, the guys in the group. So the men are making decisions as well. So this year we're actually going to start introducing guys into the conversation. So you realize you not only have to rely on Carolyn, who's currently being a leader in chemistry, but you can rely on all the other guys that are also part of the leadership team too. And you need to break down those walls and then start to do that makes sense too. So thank you for being able to share that. And for all enough to ask questions. Thank you. I think we have time for one more question.
I don't know, there was some violent from the other room. Sorry, so how are we doing for time?
7:15. So.
One more question? One more question?
Yeah. Some questions?
Yes.
I'm sorry, this terminology was jumped around a little bit, and my friend was talking about it, we were walking as well. How do you deal with imposter syndrome?
Everyone's like, oh, do we love that question? Do we love that question? I do.
Me how I feel. So I'm gonna ask you.
Okay. I mean, I don't know how the best person to answer it, because the question is, how do I deal with it if I don't? It lives with me. So to be honest, I think it's ongoing path for all of us. There are always going to be moments where you will feel like you are not the smartest person in the room, that you've been given something that you've never tackled before, and you have no idea whether you're doing a good job. So, and it's hard. It's hard because at your workplace, again, you might not want to talk to anyone about it because you will basically admit to defeat. So it took me a very long time of building this network of people that I trust and who I can basically completely, spot free, ask for their opinions, and all them notwithstanding, received phone calls from me going, hey, I just need to, just soundboard this with you. Can you play out this scenario really quickly? I'm facing this difficult situation, and I value their opinion. So that really, so far, I wish I was at that level where I could kind of do that internally with myself and sort of have a little, it sounds crazy, but, have an internal conversation about it going, what are you talking about? I guess you haven't done this thing, but you have done this other thing, you were great, and it was fine, so what are you stressing out about? But I was just pacing around this office just 2 hours before going, I'm gonna die. I'm definitely gonna catch on fire, 100% that's gonna happen, which happens to me every time. So, at this point in my life, I outsource my imposter syndrome to other people. That's how I deal with it.
You know what's great? Is talking to someone, people, or even if you don't know very much, if you can share your knowledge with someone else and help them, then you suddenly feel like, oh, maybe I do know something about something. I'm talking to last year, I was chewing in the, chewing an ear off about something, just like water. I was like, as I was saying it, I was like inside my head, just sitting there, like, oh God, I actually know stuff. It's amazing. And that has been fantastic for me because I've been able to come back to work. I feel like I've learned more about advertising while I haven't actually been in the agency, while I've been the baby, from mentoring with Indy, through Assisterhood, through doing some mentoring with Newish, the agency at UQ. It's really, quash that voice while I'm doing it. Then I remember. But if you can find some way, even if it's some person, if you're at uni, someone in your class, and you can help them with something, or someone who's behind you, or even if you're just starting out in your career, if you can share something with someone else, you're gonna feel really good, and that voice might just shut up.
I just have another lens on this, because these are the very important parts of, ultimately imposter syndrome is, I don't have the confidence to feel like I'm doing the right thing here right now. So it's really important to tap into other people to help build your confidence and demonstrate that as well. But sometimes you don't have access to that, and you're going to have to figure it out yourself. And if you can think about the framing of it a little bit differently, so there's this thing about, instead of saying I can't or I won't or whatever, you're like, you get to. And I think recognize also that discomfort that you feel is actually growth. So you might not have it figured out yet, but you're going to do it, and you're going to figure it out, and you're going to learn, and you're going to grow as a result of that. And it hurts in it. It is uncomfortable, but that's a wonderful thing to get to the other side of as well. And you're going to get through it and be like, yeah, that's where the confidence boost is. I did that.
And everyone has first. Like I remember the first time I sat down to write a radio ad. Do that. That's going to happen to all of you in your careers, where you're going to sit down in an office for the first time and be asked to do something for the first time. It still happens to all of us too. You're asked to do something for the first time, and you sit there and you're like, Google. But you get through it. We all do. You learn. You really focus on feedback, especially in those early times. If you can get it in front of something I always try to impart early is, because I know at school I was I never used to let anyone see what I was working on. I hide it away. This is my assignment. Put up the folders. And that doesn't serve you once you get out in the big world. You have to share what you're doing. You have to surface it early. You have to show it to people around you who might be able to give you feedback, and you have to take that feedback and run with it. And that's the only way to learn. You can't sit down and read a book and learn how to manage a team or write a radio ad. You have to learn by doing. That's the only way. So don't be afraid. As Erin said, that's growth.
It's growth, it's humility.
Yeah.
You know, you can't go into everything and go, I know how to do this, I'm going to smash it. And we'd love to all have that confidence, but we don't, because we all have the first and everything else. So it's a challenge. And it's humility, and humility is charming and real and authentic, and, you know, own it. You know, you don't have to get everything at once.
So I think it's important to remember as well that the industries that we work in are really subjective. So we don't work in engineering, there isn't one solution to any problem. And like, I specialize in brand strategy, there's 1,000 different directions you could take any one brand in any field of the work. And it really is anyone's best guess. And it's fantastic to surround yourself with lots of people who have lots of ideas. But I think that's something that helps me overcome it, is ultimately what we work in is ideas. And it's almost impossible to know whether an idea is going to work to be tested. So just kind of go along with the ride, use the science, but don't forget to bring the art along on the journey, because it's really important.
Really, sometimes I just pull it down my ass. Like, this day, what I was working on yesterday, made the whole thing up. I loved it, but like, put some pillars in there.
I've sort of got a question that's sort of on top of that. I really love how, like, when you all are chatting, this word that keeps coming up is confidence. I think confidence is an issue that we have, whether we're male or women, it doesn't matter. We all have confidence issues. And I was just wondering if a few of you would like to share, where in your career, where your confidence was so low, or it was just the lowest point, what did you do to get out? Did you find a mentor? Did you pep talk yourself? How did you get out of that rut?
I think all of those. And I think we've all probably been in those situations, and you do dig yourself out, and a lot of it's mentally digging yourself out. And you have to trust that you'll get there. And as part of that question before is, link yourself to the following day or the following week. That's you're stuck in, it's going to be gone next week. Really, it's going to be gone, and no one's going to die over it, to be honest with you. You have to remind yourself of those simple things in your brain first, and then your brain does function and it will get around it. But your mentors, your family, your friends, and particularly I do find that females more than males do have that network of people, and they're not afraid to have those conversations with each other and be, as I said before, vulnerable, and in that lowest of lows, and ask how you get out of it. And you know, and someone will calmly sit there and think of it in a different way, or give you an answer in a different way, that you'll realise as you're talking through it, you're finding your way out of it. And it is talking about. And I don't think you can sit there and self-destruct with it. You need to, you need to make the faith believe that next week it's going to be different, and you're going to get there. No one's going to die, and you've got lots of people around you to ask those questions.
And it's a mental thing about this industry. It moves so fast. You don't have, yes, your confidence gets rocked, but the work keeps coming. You just have to keep doing it, and you just have to get back on the horse, because it's not an option. You don't get an afternoon for a pity party. You just have to go straight on to the next trip and keep doing, and that's where you earn back the hurt feelings from your side.
And also, and mental support is asking questions. Yeah, and don't be afraid to ask the questions.
Mental health is really important. I think when you're talking about confidence, and you have to recognize when you're slipping before you get to the bottom of the barrel. And I think as women, we're so used to this image of being strong and powering through. And I have 2 children, and I have a job, and I have so many people depending on me. It's just taking that step back and feel when you're sliding down the slope. Don't wait until you're at the bottom to pick yourself up. And for me, the word that's associated to that is to have the courage to stand up and say, I'm not accepting this, or I'm not doing this anymore, or I need to leave this job. There's two really great examples on the panel. And I think that's courage as well. Yeah, or I need to ask for help to take a pause and reflect. And a mentor can help you in that journey as well, I think. I was saying to Lynn in the car, like mentors bringing a mirror, they're not doing the work for you, we're just bringing a mirror to you in what you're bringing to us to help you in that journey.
Not quite, I'm not getting my car with it. I'm getting
That's amazing.
Lots of confidence on the road.
This evening, there will be another panel, and we're also going to be joining Renee for the second panel on speed dating and matchups. So, that's happening now. Yes, we're going to, first of all, can we just please get a round of applause for this amazing. Yes, and now we get 10 minutes to stand up and we are live. Welcome to part two, panel number 2. We're not live. We're not, it's not Eurovision. It's definitely not Eurovision. I'm not dressed up for Eurovision. Please are on fire. This is not Eurovision material. Anyway, thank you everyone. Welcome back. So panel number 2. We've worked out a really good way to introduce everyone in one, and we're going to make you do the exact same thing. So, within the questions that were sent across, you had to think of 3 words to describe yourselves. So, can we please get each of you to introduce yourself, and we'll call you out, and then give us your 3 words to describe yourself. We should start with us, shouldn't we? Oh no, I don't remember the beautiful words you said.
So I'll describe you.
Describe me. Okay. So I have to remember the word I used for you then?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll start with Lena. Lena is a challenger. She is aggressive and she's great. So it's like
You've walked out one word, so that makes me feel a bit better. Fantastic. Lynn is open and vulnerable and energetic. I'm pretty sure I've also swapped out one word, but I think all of them still apply.
all right. So I think we should throw to Kylie first.
Oh.
That I am inviting, so I'll have to make sure that you know. And actually, I'm talking about ourselves, so this is.
I mean, that is great. Can you also just tell us a little bit where you work at the moment?
Yeah, sure. So I'm marketing campaign manager at Table. So obviously. Marketing for over 8 years. So yeah, doing
Thank you.
Jen, you go next.
Winging this. So.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. So I'm Jen. I'm an art director. I work in the industry at the moment. And yeah, I've got 13 years experience like graphic design and art direction. Internationally, nationally, so I'm cool, bloody everybody. And 3 words to describe myself to be colorful, bit fighty sometimes, and I guess creative to hack. There you go.
Love that. Alex? Alex is my boss, by the way. So this is really fun for me.
My name is Alex. I work as the digital director at Publicist, also one of the
founding members of Assisterhood, which I'm really proud of that these girls out there continue on. I have to say that I'm reading this as well because I didn't realise that we actually had to prepare. So I'm just going to say, I think I'm quite tenacious with what I want to push forward, but also empathetic with the team. And I love working with my team a lot and seeing them grow in their roles. The third word I would choose, it is quite stubborn, which Jude probably relate to as well, being on the same leadership team as me. So I'd say the whole kind of offices that I do. I've got 15 years of experience in the industry, have been in Australia for 11, and actually to move back to Scandinavia the next year.
Good for Scandinavia, it's good for us. Ash can take a sip of wine.
I'd say I'm quite resourceful because I made pulling the whole night. Resourceful, friendly. I really love people. I love to have a chat. And one word that I've been given by my founder, who's known me for quite some time, so 5 years, we've got a pretty good relationship, is it's 2 words. I'm going to change it. Contagious group.
Yeah, I love that. It's quite a unique role actually to Assisterhood, which I love. So can you tell all of it about managers?
Yeah, it made me feel really like I could be facing rejection really quickly because I'm a head of product for a software company, so I'm a little bit less center with some of the talent here. I have worked for an agency and done that type of thing. I have a background in graphic design and marketing, but I'm in software right now, so I deal with a lot of boring tech dudes. So
we're in the digital team, so boring tech.
No, that's fun. Like code isn't. So
for everyone who's watching, who's aspiring to be a coder, we love you. We love you. You make things happen for us.
All right, I'm going to go through the far end. So Cindy,
we know you're prepared. I have my name is Karen. I'm also known as Zippy, and I am senior producer up here in Brisbane for Prodigious, which is the production arm of the Publicists Group. And been in the industry, numbers, who needs numbers? Long time, a very long time. I was 18 when I came up from North New South Wales and scored a job at a recording studio. And yeah, 4 or 5 years ago, this is what production does to you. I am 26 and so I'm very lucky to be part of the Publicists family, and but also still do what I love to do, which is production. And the 3 words, so hard words. Enthusiastic is one, which I think I try and bring to everything I do. Giving is something that someone else said to me this afternoon, so I put that in because that sounded pretty good. And giving / a feeder. So I do like to, I like to.
She's a great feeder.
Not in a weird way. No, lovely. That's why you're in as a professional. It's Easter Rock the Road coming up.
Yeah.
And optimistic would probably be another term that describes me. So that's me.
My name's Jude. I head up the client service side of the business at Publicists. I've been in the industry possibly longer than Zippy, maybe the same. Don't you? Who's counting? She's 27. And when I think of the 3 words that describe me, it's very hard to actually distill it down to 3, but I think the most important word to me is probably trustworthy. And I think that's got to be at the core of everything, whether you're client side, supply side, whatever it is, comes down to trust. It's the foundation of good relationships. I think I'm resilient. Another thing that I think is really important, particularly in the industry that we're in, because the reality is you will get things wrong and things will go to shit and you've got to do it.
And probably the last thing is passion. I spoke to a few people in the speed dating. I absolutely love what I do. And I'll say it again, if you love what you do, your chances are you're good at it. And if you're good at it, then people want to do it with you. And if you keep on going, then you'll be successful. So it's a bit about me. Thank you.
Well, I have to follow Jude. Hi, I'm Christine. I'm managing partner of Clemens Brisbane. 3 words to describe me. Okay, well, I have one similar to Kylie where I'm diplomatic. I also dedicated and fair. And I think that reflects, I do a very similar job to Jude. And I think those 3 qualities are really important, particularly when what we do is a relationship based. I think even for people in the creative team or in the studio who might not feel that they would deal in relationships, the thing that we do more than anything else beyond the product that we create is we build relationships. And I spoke to a few of the girls tonight to say, you know, remember your cohort, because 3 years ago, we were a cohort of juniors, and now we're a cohort of seniors. So, you know, while mentoring and mentee relationships are really important, so are your peers and then the people that will be with you the longest. Relationships with those peers, but also with the people that you deal with every day, will be the things that you'll remember. And we will have client agency relationships that become friendships, and then, you know, things intertwine over time, and if you keep true to those values, like you said, about being trustworthy and passionate and genuine. Thanks for the job. Yeah.
And I think we also said, like, it's more about your people business.
That's it, it's a lot of people. Yes.
Amazing. Georgia, do you want to pick up the whole?
So I'm Georgia, I'm the general manager at a digital agency called Vivo. So my background is in sales and strategy, and I've worked my way up within business development at the moment. And so I guess 3 words are really difficult, although I feel like I have a twin here in one of my mentors because he had some similar words for me. So one of the words I have is loyal, which I feel is really closely aligned with trustworthiness, and sort of the people that I hold close, I have really close, and obviously take good care of them. They're very in my family. And another word that I had was resilient as well. So I think definitely being able to come back from adversity, able to sort of respond to change, be adaptable, is something that serves you really well throughout your career. It's something you definitely need to be able to do. And then I've just used my 3rd word in the description, my 2nd word, which was adaptable. So
Double down.
I'll go for it, thanks, Ken.
So Georgia, I think something Georgia does beautifully, and she's so strategic and customer oriented. So again, no, when you're talking about no client agency relationship, Georgia certainly really seeks to understand who people are and what they're doing, so she can drive that. So I took that away from you.
Fellow people versus, that's essentially.
Teamwork, I love that. Well, cool.
Yes, so I'm Camilla. I'm the head of marketing for the Endeavour Foundation, which is a for-purpose organisation supporting people with social disability. My experience before that is actually in insurance. So I sort of went, hold on, I might need to move to a more community-oriented job and move myself over. And before that, Virgin Australia. Yeah, 3 words like everyone said is really hard. I think for me, people-oriented is definitely one. I'm really passionate about teams and building cohesive teams and high-performing teams, which is really challenging. Pragmatic, really pragmatic. You sort of got to balance what you're aiming to achieve with the challenges around you and what purpose you're serving. And then probably just results focused. You know, my favourite saying is start with the end in mind. You know where you're trying to go and which way that can be. Yeah.
We want to do this exercise, and I'm going to go for the reason. So I think it's really good. You'll start to notice that the adjectives that people use are adjectives. So they're not about the way you look, or the way you feel, or your gender, or the way you're raised. So it's all around identifying like what drives you as well as your values. That's what we try to encapsulate here. So what we're trying to do with Assisterhood this year is move it away from females to females, but start to move it away from females for everyone. So you don't identify as female folks, so you identify as your value base, or
organizational tools. So on that note, I'm going to ask the second question, and I'm going to choose who questions we go to afterwards. The question is, who is your biggest inspiration and why? And I'm going to throw this question to you.
I actually feel like there's many people that inspire me. And it's interesting because I asked this same question of a bunch of early 20-year-olds recently. And this name popped up on their list. And it's just Jacinda Ardern. And there's a couple of reasons why. And I think I look at her and I think, wow, like you are empathetic, you are a true leader of people. And sure, you have to contribute to policy and political conversations, but you do it for the right reasons and you do it with grace. And I think it's that ability to flex all the way down, flex all the way up, but do it with integrity. And so I look at her and I just think she is who she is. I feel like she'd speak the same way to the Queen as what she would to the person that's actually asking for $20 on the street. So yeah, I find her absolutely inspiring because I feel like she's someone that gets results with integrity and actually brings people along with her. So.
Should we throw it over to this side? I think we should. Go for it. I'm going to throw it to Jen. Jen, who's your biggest inspiration?
As a creative, I think it's like, I'm inspired by a lot of people and different artists and things like that, but personally, I'm inspired by all sorts of things and places, and it just changes daily. Like last week, I was really vibing with this photographer, do you know Calypso? Really crazy. She does all this like stuff photography in like a bunker that was once owned by like Avon. It is weird, it's very big, it's very cool. Anyway, and then just like yesterday, she does a lot of nudes as well, so. Yeah,
right now.
Good, yeah. And then like, yesterday, I'm really inspired by this like orange plastic chair that I can't afford but want real bad. So, like, I don't know, for me, in my job, I have to be inspired by things and try and harvest them and turn them into something new, and that's the fun part. And just exploring and meeting people and, seeing the way they do things and applying a little bit of everything and everyone to my inspirational hub of, I don't know, whatever it is, but it works and it's really fun and yeah, I don't know, lots of stuff.
It's like an internal interest.
Yeah. Yeah, but also, yeah.
Good question. Let's move on to the next one. So what is the most fulfilling part about what you do? I'm going to throw that over to Hey, I'm being a wine ball.
Product's really weird because as people, the first thing that happens is you kind of see a problem and then they're like, so put the button here and make the button red. And you have the red's the wrong color and it shouldn't be a button.
Do not click this button.
That's a lot to admit and it shouldn't be red. So the fulfilling part is going through the process with someone and making them realize that they can think strategically alongside you and there's no magic to products, like there's none. It's just thinking about a problem, finding the best solution and then working out how to get there. We just implemented a new framework at Outfit, which is called Shape Up. And there's two really key frameworks in software that a lot of companies use. So one is waterfall, and it was when they were burning software on disks, and they were like, we've got to cut it off, and we need to burn this thing, and we need to like get there. And the next one is agile, which is a little bit more iterative, but it's not really iterative anymore because
a bunch of guys who've like messed around with the framework. And so there's a new sort of way to do things, which is about collaboration. And so for us, extending Shape Up to our clients is really important. I was on a call today with one of our really big customers, and I had to say to her, like, I know this is scary, but you just kind of have to trust me on this one. And I lent on my personal relationships so much for that. And so it's kind of, for me, it's like breaking down the barriers, that there's no secret sauce. It's just me and a bunch of dudes trying to work stuff out, and we're going to bring you along for that journey. And we might stuff it up a little bit, but we're going to be transparent about that. So maybe I've gone the long way of saying the best part of my job is dealing with it. I still personally love that we started with a red button. You have no idea how much it resonated to my soul. You look about making the logo bigger. Make the logo bigger. That's quite real, in a quite real way. That is actually a really amazing question, because as being a digital person in a creative area, it is a bit of a, there are always rules that we need to kind of work through to explain how all of that marries up, but intrinsically it all comes back to people, and it all comes back to still being driven by creativity ultimately, even if the point of conversation where you started is a big horrible red button that we all need to get rid of. But through the power of personal relationships and trust, and through the power of storytelling, we can kill that red button and make it something fantastic. Just make it a green button. Just make it a green button. Zippy, I'm going to throw that over to you now. Same question. Same question. What kind of new role do you find most fulfilling? All of what's just been said, except for the red button, is production. So it's so interesting listening to you. I'm like, so you think you're in this product world and it's coding and whatever. Everything that you go through, I go through as a producer, because it's about, ultimately, it's about people. And that's the gift and the challenge in production, because I'm the one who often has to talk, like, there's a million examples I could give, but, you know, someone doesn't want us to be on that corner, on that street, and is standing there making out, and we've got a team of, a crew of 25 people, and we need to get the shot, and it's like, right, and I go, and again, it's like, yeah, oh, we stood over here, and we can just do, yeah, oh, I know, we won't be here for very much longer, and, you know, and having a really nice day, what about and they've got the shot, and we're on our way. So yes, it's like getting rid of the red button, but that is also part of what I love about production, in that you can see where you need to go, and you've often got to bring a whole group of people along with you in terms of, and in a timely and budgetary same pattern, so that you actually get where you need to go. But also that everyone's had a reasonably good time, because you know, we are curing cancer, we are making, we're making either content or television commercials or something like that, and that's what we have to remember. But it's also, people are paying us to do our job, and they're paying for it to look good. So we have a responsibility. But as a producer, I love just seeing it all come together, and also solving those problems. And that means I might need to be talking to the client, I might be needing to talk to the agency who are my client. I might need to be somehow coercing part of the crew into just, come on, just do it. Come on, you know, when it's just all going a bit bad, or you know, or someone who's cranky because we're even in their vision, you know. It's a matter of, then it comes back down to people. So it's the same thing, but that is, I think, what is the biggest satisfaction, is when you can kind of make it all happen, and it's awesome, and everyone's kind of reasonably happy, and you know, great results. Like, it's funny, because I would never have thought what you do is the same challenge, but it totally is. So I don't want to hijack the conversation, because I know we've got a lot of questions to get through, but one thing that I was told we had a guy come in, and he was a facilitator, and we were kind of talking about where we were at the time, And one thing I'll never forget, he said to me, if you can align what you're trying to do with someone's personal agenda, and I don't mean in a narcissistic way, I mean what they're trying to achieve, what it means for them personally. And if you can make them the hero of the story, you will win every time. And today, in that call, that's what I was able to do with that client, is sort of say, this is going to be important for you, and this feature is important for your business, and then you can escalate that to your, your superior, and you can kind of tell that as a winning story. And so I think you'll never escape the personal connection or that personal bias that you have. You'll always come up against personalities. So that's why people are so important.
I'm struggling with these questions because I just want to listen to you guys. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna swag the notes in front of me. So my next question for you guys is, could you tell us about a time in a professional career that changed your life? And I'm gonna put a little slight lens on that and say, in your professional career that changed your life, but also like the first time you feel like you made it. So in that sort of moment, just to kind of hurry me a little bit more. 2:16. I feel long.
That's interesting. My example is probably a little bit left of centre and interesting, because I don't know whether I've ever had a career defining moment where something happened in terms of a promotion or that, and I went, wow, something. But the moment that always springs to mind when you ask that question was having a child in our industry. So when I returned from maternity leave, I was the first person in my company in the country to return part-time. So I felt incredible pressure not to screw it up, because I felt like, and this was probably 11 years ago, and this was when there were companies in our industry that would not permit women to come back to work unless it was full-time. So there was a lot of pressure to make it work. And I was in a fortunate situation where my company was really supportive and we could structure it that was appropriate. And I feel like, looking back now, it was incredibly difficult because the structures and the support systems weren't around to make it happen. So you just worked really, really hard and tried to do a full-time job and a part-time amount of day. But what it taught me was my grit, my commitment. I got incredibly efficient, but I also felt really proud that I could make, even though it didn't really technically work on a personal level, I made it work so that people coming after me had it easier. And now I work for a company that lets you work 4 days a week and pays you for 5. And part of me is like, what? Within a 10-year period, that's not acceptable, and that sometimes you have to be the one that has the hard job and does the hard job to make it feasible within an organisation, so that the ones who are following you get it better. So I think that for me would be the moment in my career that I felt was the biggest change.
I'm going to that question to Kylie. Yeah, it's kind of not really a defining moment. I'm actually, but I can kind of know. I'm shocked that you asked me to be a mentor. I would like to be a mentor. I actually studied international business marketing with the pure reason that I wanted to travel, and that was basically my main goal. So I did bachelor and I actually did my master's, and the first job I got offered out of uni, which was the big export. I didn't have any experience in you guys, so I just went, I'll take whatever, I just want money. So worked in that, and then we packed up and went over to London and did 2 years over there, and I took a job in education, just random contract, just fell into it. So came back, and so did 2 years there, came back home and got a job at QT and ended up working in international marketing. And I just thought that was the best. Traveling overseas, my markets were Europe, Americas, which in my opinion are the best ones. Yeah, so I thought, I get to combine marketing stuff, I get to travel, this is amazing until I have kids and I'm like, it's not going to be anymore. Yeah, so I must take place now. Yeah, so just marketing communications and campaigns onshore, so I don't have to travel on my commutes. Yeah, so no, not made it, but yeah, I feel like that was a QT job really. Yeah. So,
Oh, sorry. I didn't- It's all right. It's fine. All right, well, this one is going to be digging into, I guess, some potential personal struggles as well. So what has been the most difficult part of managing people for you? And, yeah.
Maybe not, maybe not. I feel so weird out with those things. I just feel like as a creative, I don't know, and I feel like Jen and I are together. So as a creative person, I come up with an idea, it's beautiful, and then you work with everyone around you to make it happen, make it reality. And that sometimes can be really, really hard. It's really easy, but it's all about, again, the people around you working together. Sometimes you disagree. So I feel like Jen has a conflict. Yeah.
Open up the can of worms.
I don't sure this way.
Liz is pretty understanding with, she's on the journey with us usually, and she's so conflict is minimal. But no, the most frustrating part for me, I think, would be, I wish I was always wondering. Just like people, okay, so when you come up with an idea and you're kind of constantly selling it, right? Selling it to your own team, internally, selling it to the client, and you're constantly, it's evolving, everyone's got opinions, everyone's got rub up on it, and it's constantly evolving. You can't give up. You just gotta roll with it. Just keep changing and adapting and just being like, yeah, cool, I'll change that. And then you gotta make it work, and you've got to be really quite resilient to do that. What frustrates me is that you need a team of people, and then sometimes they're just like, I've given up, this fucking sucks. And you're just like, dude, come on, let's go. We're gonna win. Like, it's gonna be okay. And people, I don't know, for me, when they just give up too soon, it just drives me fucking crazy. And it's the reward at the end is so sweet. When you're all at the pub and the concert's all in, and production's been briefed, and you're just like, yes. Yeah. Yeah. The sandwiches. Yeah. But yeah, I think just, people could give up too soon. It's not the end of all creative certainly isn't.
I mean, honestly, I have to take my hat to you. I have no idea how creative teams do it, because putting yourself out there so much with something you've created with your little baby, and then having it called ugly, and then having like a third arm tacked onto it, and all sorts of things happen. It's so tough. You have to be so incredibly resilient, and I think very just preserve and protect that passion to not let other people, smother it.
Just not be attached to it as well. That creative group says you learn young to kill idea. More die than live. And
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
Oh, this one's dumb.
Unfortunately, you just have to get used to it, because you have to be attached and be passionate about the ones that are truly important, but then you have to let others go, because otherwise you can't survive.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of self-preservation, because it's a creative passion, and having that creativity is a very special talent and skill, but you have to nurture it as well. As well as it's not a never-ending supply. You just turn the tap on and burn it.
Yes, there you go.
Otherwise, we don't do it.
Yeah. And yeah, definitely don't ask me to come up with creative ideas, because horrible things can happen. I would actually like to direct that question to Jude.
Oh,
Do you want me to remind the question? Yeah, we're sitting here. Get into it. On babies and things. The question was, what do you find the most challenging about managing people?
Geez. Probably recognizing, and this sounds really, this might be a little bit contentious, but I think it's.
We've done the dead babies.
It's a little bit of self-awareness. I get very frustrated when people don't have self-awareness. They don't read a room, and the way they conduct themselves. actually influences the mood of a room and the workflow and, you know, the whole vibe. Absolutely hate that. But I also actually get frustrated when people don't realise the reality is nobody does the job as well as what you think you do, right? So everyone attacks a task in a different way. And you need to respect that. You can't actually always benchmark everyone against how you would do the job. And that frustrates me when people benchmark absolutely everything about, you know, the work process around how they would do it and what they would do. So I find that hard to manage because making somebody aware that that's what they're doing can often bring with it an element of conflict, and it's generally a result of them having limited awareness of things. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I've got like one thing to add, only because it's super top of mind. I had someone resign in my team last week, and I rode motorbikes with him. We hung out. Like, I thought we were, you know, we were kind of on the same page. And I think one of the tough things about managing people is having that self-awareness as a manager is that maybe you don't know everything about them as well.
Yeah.
And so I kind of had to get out of his way a little bit. And for me, as a manager, it's always important to support their needs first, and the company second. But it was hard. I wanted to take it personally, but I kind of stepped back and went, this kind of isn't about me. This isn't about outfit. This is what's right for that individual. So some of the hard part is separating yourself, you personally, what you bring to work, and then what's right for them as well.
Can I just add something to that? Because again, it's what you were saying, but the global situation that we've gone through in the last year has really affected everyone, not just, you know, everyone, you know, everyone, us as leaders and us also our staff. And I think one of the challenges that I thought was actually being a human, is you know, behind the screen for other humans. People were vulnerable, there were a lot of fights, people were really struggling. So I think finding that side of yourself as well to try and support others while you're trying to manage your life with all your struggles, I have to say, I can put myself out there, that was really tough.
And people like keep their houses really
That also makes us people business, and I value my people and really want to make sure that I'm there for them, not just in a professional sense, but also as a human.
Okay, so that's great. So this is all about mentoring. So the whole program is about one-to-one mentoring, but also what we've positioned in the last couple of years is not move away from one-to-one mentoring, but also group mentoring. So that's how we do events like this, where you guys have a chance to meet all the mentors and do learning en masse. So not only connecting with community, but also like building a tribe as well. So all of these guys, most of them know each other in this group. So and they've known each other for years. The team that we have, we've been in this little squad for a few years now. We know each other. Like Claire and I went to uni together, so we've seen each other grow. So my question is goes back to mentoring. I'd like to think that Claire mentors me energetically, and I like to mentor her. We switch roles in and off. So that's why this program is really powerful. And so I want to ask you guys about your mentoring experience. So my first question is, how did you find it and reach out to the mentors in your life? I'm going to throw that to you.
Yeah, sure. I guess for me, I think it's a really great point you make around, you know, think a bit outside the box when you think about mentors. It's not necessarily this whole mentor-mentee relationship. I've probably learned the most I have learned from some great managers. And when I found that they were a great manager, I just doubled down and asked them all the questions and stuff, done everything I possibly could about what they knew, and asked them for feedback, and, you know, constantly asked what I could do better or what I could do to grow. And then same with peers network. So, you know, you can learn something from everybody, I think. So figuring out maybe what you think that person can teach you and vice versa, what they might be able to learn from you, I think is probably the better way of looking at mentoring or learning. I guess that question's really base level. How would I do it? I think I had some companies I worked for that had a mentor program. Put my hand up, I wanted to be a part of it. So, stepping forward and reaching for opportunities when you find them, like you guys are doing today. And seriously, if there's on LinkedIn you're really passionate about, just send them a note. Chances are they're going to be really excited to receive it and they'll respond to you. So don't be nervous, because I think we talked a bit about imposter syndrome. Everyone here probably thinks they've done 100 things wrong and 2 things right. So when someone says to you, hey, I really like what you said, I'm really interested in what you're doing, you always feel good about it. So, yeah. Heads up, that's how a whole bunch of these lovely people ended up on this panel. Is my husband did really awkward LinkedIn.
And one of those LinkedIn messages that I sent to Georgia. So, Georgia.
I probably echo everything Ken says. Like, I've never had a formal mentor relationship. I've had some fantastic bosses, probably really similar to what Cam said, where they're the kind of relationships that really empower you to back yourself. You know, sort of, I remember one of my first bosses saying to me, I would constantly be taking things to him because I just wanted to know that I was doing it right and that he was happy with my work. And I remember distinctly one time I was over checking in with him on something, and he just looked at me and said, "You've got this one." And like, he just gave me the confidence to think, he, like, knowing that he trusted me to do it at his level that he'd be happy with, filled me with so much confidence. You know, and so I think those relationships are really valuable. And yes, I've probably had a few good managers and sort of bosses like that. And I think definitely peers, definitely sort of the relationships you've got around you. I've not really thought about sort of that cohort. It's come up a lot in the conversations tonight, but it's so true, so valuable if you can sort of find other people where you're like-minded, you've got similar values, and it's very much a, you know, there can be a lot of talk about women tearing them down. And it's something that I think probably, you know, everyone in this room has been guilty of at some point, something that we do in ways that we don't even necessarily recognise that we do it. So when you can find a positive group of women, which is exactly what Linda Blair and the girls are doing, where you all sort of build each other up, it's just such a positive network. It doesn't have to be a formal mentoring relationship. You know, find a great community, get yourself in that community, be active in that community, and give as much as you're willing to receive. And I think you'll find it. Thank you. Oh, I felt like
Amazing. My question. So this is also a mentoring relation, a really good one. What are the key ingredients to being a good mentor? What do you have to have in you to get there? I'm going to turn this one to Alex.
I think it comes to mutual respect. It's not just a one-way street, it's a two-way street. So for me, the most success I've had in my life when I've had mentors is conversations we've had and the goal we've set together. I think everyone here has that as well with creating those relationships with your peers and not being afraid of actually uttering your kind of concerns or your thoughts, and actually making sure that you can get the feedback on that as well from other people. I think the most valuable stuff that I've learned in my life is just me putting myself a little bit out there and just taking in what others have thought about that as well. So I think like a relationship is really solid to create. I do think that you need security in that role. You need to be able to see it as a safe space as well. So I think creating that safe space to start off with is really key, because otherwise you won't get into those conversations. So that's what I've noticed for the past 4 years as well, you know, having relationships with everyone who's gone through the program. We still have relationships and we're still talking about the coffees because we've managed to create that long-term thing. Even with my mentors, I mean, they go back 70 years. I am the age. But that is why I feel, you know, it's a safe space and I can be calm and stand up straight up, or I need help, or I need advice. So I think that's really important to make sure that it's not just about your professional career either. You might be struggling with something in your life that's affecting everything. So make sure that you don't see it just as professional coaching. It's anything that you want to
advice on anything that stands in your way or you see as a struggle or as an opportunity. So make sure that you take that opportunity to have those conversations with people who can trust it.
Christine, do you want to jump onto this one? Can we remind you what it was?
Sure.
What are the secret qualities, well, not so secret qualities, to becoming a good mentor?
Build on what you're saying about the two-way relationship. It can sometimes be looked upon as a power relationship, a mentor giving advice into a mentee, but I sometimes feel and that it's both ways. I find that I learn things from as much from a mentee as I do being a mentor. While I might have experience, they might have learned a completely different way of looking at things or doing something that I don't know. And so I sort of feel like that ability for it to seem like an equal relationship and that we're both gaining and we're both giving in that relationship happens. And like I was saying before, like, these young ladies are intimidating. John, and you're doing internships and you've got side hustles and like, we just like have to work for years. The job and then trying to figure it out. So we've got the years of experience to do it. And so we can learn as much from you as hopefully we can. It can be a little bit intimidating being a mentor because you're like, can I actually add value to the conversation? Or you guys are like, so.
You don't always have the right answers, right?
Yes.
Everything is based on our experience. So there's 100 different ways to go about it. So that's where the insecurity comes in for us as well. When you sit there and you realize the life-changing questions and you just go,
I don't know.
I think being really just open and honest, right? Like you can look at a resume of somebody and it looks like they've been really strategically well thought out and how they got from the start to where they are now. And that's not actually how any of it happened. You're on a timeline of where they've got to. So, when you get to where you are is often, through many detours and many challenges and mistakes, successes and failures. And I think being open and honest about how you get somewhere is really important because it's not just a really clear road up. And yes.
I've had this interesting phrasing the other day from another magical lady, which I can of course forget the name of because I'm terrible with names. But what she said is your LinkedIn profile is like the Instagram of your career. So it's a really polished, really refined version of what actually happened. And if you start digging into what actually happened and how you ended up in all the roles, definitely didn't happen as neatly. So yeah.
Like a contract that didn't work out. So.
Yeah. But it looks amazing in that little time. It looks incredible.
It's very consulting.
Yeah. Very strategic moves. Fantastic. Well, we might throw it out to the audience to ask the burning questions. Yes.
Sorry. So if you could do
Do you remember the whole chat about the story thing?
Oh, no.
There you go. We're starting to pull you up in it right now.
So if you could do like a back to the future, but back to the past and start from the beginning of your career, would you do anything differently? Or do you think everything that you've done to get where you are the same? And then for anyone
Who wants to take it away?
I'm happy to take that. Personally, I wouldn't, because I've certainly made a lot of mistakes. And that's probably made me better in my job now because of those mistakes. And I think, what you were saying before, zigzagging and not going straight is a really positive thing. I think the worst mistake people can make is fly to the top too quickly and not actually look at either side of them. And I think probably taking time to learn the skills in your role, but absolutely extending yourself sideways to the skills around you will make sure that you actually have a higher ceiling at the end. If you go like that, you hit the ceiling very quick and it's a lot lower if you do it otherwise. So for me, the best way I think that I've done that is I've gone sideways here and there and I've failed. I've come back in, gone out the other way, I've failed, I've come back in, and all those little bumps all the way up the tree, I believe has actually contributed to who I am today. So I certainly wouldn't change anything.
I'll add to that. It was actually one of the additional questions you guys had, which I thought was a really good one, and it sort of fits into this, which is, you know, what skill would you have gone and taught yourself right at the beginning if you knew you were coming on? And the one that just stuck to myself really was how to have a difficult conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
When you're doing that with your team, manager, clients, anybody, it's actually really scary and really daunting, and you don't want to do it and you just retreat really fast. And it doesn't necessarily get easier, but it's probably just one skill that if there was a way of sort of working through that or getting some guidance and mentorship on how to have a really positive, difficult conversation, that would be one that I would have.
Without procrastinating.
Exactly. Just grab it with both hands. Yeah.
I'm going to back what Cam said. And I would actually change something, like I can pinpoint this. When I started in the product role, I had imposter syndrome, like it was fucking no tomorrow. Like I doubted myself, I didn't speak up in conversations. I felt like I shouldn't have been there. Why am I in product? I came from design, what the fuck? And now I'm regretting that because I'm doing the hard work to reset in people's minds my capability, my knowledge, and what I know is right for the product. And that's not because I'm arrogant or I've got an ego the size of this room. It's because I did the work on the ground with the clients. I knew what was right and I didn't speak up to the people that intimidated me at the table. And they were sales guys and they were men, and I backed away from that, and I shouldn't have. And so now if I hear that from someone in my team, I'm like, we're going to go have a conversation, and it's going to be a bit hard and it's going to be awkward, but I'm going to be there with you. I'm going to give you the space to speak up and speak your mind. And it might be wrong, and that's okay, but I would have spoken up sooner, knowing that even if I failed, so what, everyone does.
Yeah, and I think there's two things that come to mind for me. Is one is that the idea that you don't have to have all the answers.
Yeah.
When I was starting out, I can't, it's bad. You know, you think, oh, I'm just going to make an excuse and tap dance and whatever. It's like, just own it. Just own it. And it's so freeing. That was a really big moment for me because I'm a pleaser. And, I want to make sure I do everything really well, and I'm a perfectionist on myself, but so I think I thought I had to have all the answers, and you just don't. And the other thing I think is learning that change is part of life, and not being afraid of it. Don't let that hold you back. It doesn't mean you need to go out willy-nilly and just be, reckless or whatever. It's more about the idea of things are always going to change. So just think about that. Be considered, spend some time kind of thinking about what you'd like that change to be. But if the change isn't what you thought it was going to be, how can you learn from that? And to me that if I'd learned those two things just a couple of years earlier, that's where I'd be. Just in there. Yes.
It's usually also the
just on what Karen and Pat were saying, like imposter syndrome and self-doubt and everything. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but on behalf of most of the recent graduates and newly entry-level workers, we have this black hole in our mind where it's filled with synonyms of all these words. So my question is more of a case study / personal question. I got my first client, but because I was going through this imposter syndrome and I want to prove myself and I want to have that client and put it on resume, I did not code anything for the amount of work I'm putting. And I don't know where I go from here because I'm doing this presentation tomorrow. And as of now, it's looking like I'm doing work for free.
She's working so hard.
And I'm like, do it? She doesn't pay me for it. So I do it. I'm lost. I don't know how to
It's a difficult conversation.
That's it.
Okay, sorry, can you give us a bit more context to say again, someone has engaged you, your first client,
Yes.
and so you put together a process, but you don't have costing attached.
So I'm taking note for this person, they contacted me, and I've just made a couple of mock-ups, but I did not post anything. I don't know why.
So you should have that discussion straight away before you accept the job.
Yeah.
It's
I don't know how to
okay.
do
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think though, I think the best thing, like what I would do if I was in shoes, call it. Say, I own it, say, I apologize, I should have been more transparent on process.
Yeah.
And say, I would normally charge this, or this is my fee structure. So whatever the structure is that you wish you'd put in place, be really clear on that and say, I should have said this up front. This is what I would be doing. So, you know, this is sort of the fee structure that I would have to be doing this photo work. And then say, are you still comfortable to proceed on this basis? Right? And so if you own the facts that you should have shared, but you've got a very clear way forward, you're humble in that, and I'm sure they will be very forgiving and understanding. And at the end of the day, worst just going to say is no.
Yeah.
Right?
Do they know that they're your first client?
Yeah, they do. I met them in another networking event and they're kind of mentor.
I'd just be totally honest and just say, you know what, you're my first client and I've probably done this around the wrong way. And I'm a little bit awkward and this is where I'm at with it. Just be totally honest.
I don't know anyone who would engage them to do design or branding development.
Without expecting.
Yeah, and if they expect that you're gonna do it for free, don't bother.
We've all got the rights to it, as long as they pay you or sign for it. As long as you don't give it to them.
Are you clear on what you need to do?
Just add like fee structures and how costing works and how complicated finance is. The digital world is quite a good example of that because there's a bit of a dark hole and it can become a beast. And people think, oh, I just want you to develop me this. You start doing that, and it just grows and grows and grows. Well, we've all been there. Like we've come to a point where it's like, just like 3 weeks ago, and we don't know what to say to the client. So I think we've got to be better at that. Like the industry has gotten better at that. Because what we're doing is agile things with like, you know, paper run things. It's a little bit of a fluid situation as well. We end up having those conversations. But like, as long as you haven't gotten paid, it's your work.
Just be honest. Just be yourself and honest. I mean, who could not pay you?
If you've met these people in this person in a networking situation, you would also expect that they, you know, they've got a sense of honour about them as well. We'd like to think that. So they might be a business person who, you know, is pretty.
Definitely. She's very
assertive.
Amazing, assertive, articulate. She knows what she's doing. She's considerate. She's mindful.
She actually should be here tonight.
So again, it's a matter of respecting that. But then just as you've been advised, you know, it's like owning it.
I feel like she might have that question, but in my mind, because I did not initiate or answer or question that, in my mind, I'm like, I should have done that for my end. And
Next time.
that's my first error.
Yeah.
And just you're meeting tomorrow, right? Just put it, just first thing, bang, get it out of the way, and then.
But the impressive thing is you're having this conversation now, not tomorrow night. And that's quite serious because you actually have an opportunity to, as you say, front foot it. And that's you've realised, you know, oh, hang on, I've made a little mistake here. How do I get out of it? So it's a really good question.
And the mental energy it takes to worry about that. Then you go, why did I say it earlier? Like the amount of time that we collectively spend worrying about things by procrastinating, having a conversation.
Yeah.
If you rip the Band-Aid, and not that we're all awesome at it all the time, but ripping the Band-Aid off makes life a lot easier because generally 8 times out of 10 we'll be like, oh, of course, yeah, fine, no worries, and just like, what?
And generally it's about money too.
Yeah.
To be honest. That's where the question goes. Hence the need to have an open, transparent, trusting relationship.
Yeah.
Because the conversation gets easier if you have a good relationship. Yeah.
And as much as I'd love to, I'm going to
was wrong there. I'm sorry, I do apologise, but I'm happy for you to pick up the conversation with any one of these ladies here. So here tonight, and also reach us them later, but I am going to say, join hands and stick together. Everyone here, and I know I feel really good vibes. Like I love this stuff because I take and motivate myself for the next day. So thank you everybody. Thank you. I'm going to shoot over to you to tell us how launch initially.
Yes, well, that's easy because that's tomorrow. So if you'd like to apply tomorrow, we'll announce that on our socials. So you'll be able to log onto our website and submit an application. You can apply for an assister in particular. We will still review every single application and you may not get the person you applied for, but if you have a really strong application, you might get somebody else. So it's going to be down to the mentors to select their mentees. They're going to get a short list from us, but it's going to be down to them. So best of luck to everybody. As I said before, we will do an absolute best to try and have more open events as well. So even if we realize that there is 24 mentors, which means there can only be 24 mentees. So unfortunately, we can't, get everyone with us on this journey. So we'll do our level best to try and spread this love as much as we can and get more open events happening as well this year. So thank you all very much. Whoever has still survived our technical issues earlier online. So
many people, yeah.
It's probably just Tish. Thank you so much, Tish.
You guys want to chat some more, feel free to. There's lots more cheese and lots more wine out there as well. But yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.